So, welcome to Introduction to Scientific Computing and HPC. Very briefly, what is this course about? Well, it's structured over 3 days, and we kind of gradually build on the skills, on the basic skills that are needed for basically scaling up your computations. So in Finland, and also for those of you who are not in Finland, most likely you have access to an high performance computing cluster, which basically means lots and lots of servers connected by a very fast whatever it is called, that network, so that they can run lots of computations. And it might well be that you don't need, thousands of servers connected in parallel, but what is useful is that you can just request one for yourself, do your work in a secure way, and then happily, continue with publishing paper and things like that. So who is attending this workshop, this course? Well, there's multiple people from multiple universities. We're very happy that today with us beyond Aalto University, there's also ESK University and Oulu University. But in general, we span across borders. We have people from all over the Nordics, Europe, and even beyond. So the practicality is this is not your typical kind of Zoom workshop or Zoom course where we are all in the same Zoom. Here we use this type of a live stream strategy, which you can understand that it's very useful because this is like a TV studio, and we're like all watching the TV together. And by doing this, we can make sure that we can provide immediately high quality recordings of all the training that we have today. And more broadly, you will later see that everything is to be stored in our YouTube channel so that you can rewatch something that we're going to mention in these days, but also sometimes we don't cover things that we have already covered well in the past. And so there's more videos that we will refer to. The communication with the instructors happens through this type of asynchronous chat, and you can understand already that this is much better than something like the Zoom chat, which makes it impossible to communicate. With this type of shared document that we are all editing right now, there's 105 people editing in parallel. You can basically ask questions, and then maybe some of you could answer, or one of the helpers can answer, and so on. At the end, this document basically forms a nice diary of the whole day, which will then archive, and you can later go back to it and check it. As you might have already tested this, once you open the link that you have received in your registration email, there's a pencil at the top. The screen share there, yeah, the screenshot there is showing that. By clicking on the pencil, basically you enter the edit mode, and then you're able to add the text where you need to add it. The shared document is powerful, but of course, if there's hundreds of people editing in parallel, it can be, challenging even to just type. So if you know that you don't need to write anything, you can switch back to the view mode by clicking that eye icon, so that the load of the server is smaller and other people can write freely. Right, so where do we focus, or where to focus? Because you can understand that there's different windows, and in general, focus on the streaming on the Twitch TV window. We provide this type of vertical layout so that, as you can see in the picture there, you can kind of keep the Twitch window on one side of your laptop screen, for example, and then you can keep let's say this notes document in another browser window, or your terminal. We will use a lot the terminal to connect to the remote cluster. Of course, if you have multiple screens, then you don't have these issues, but we are thinking for those of you who are working with a laptop so that they have enough desktop space to arrange all the windows together. Maybe one thing that I did not mention when it comes to Twitch TV streaming, it is important that you set the bandwidth to basically source, which means the same bandwidth of the original broadcasting stream. Otherwise, Twitch will do some sort of compression, and so things will start to get blurry. But if you make it so that the bandwidth is basically the maximum available, you will see the stream All right. Anything else that we are missing? Yeah, maybe on the learning styles that there's many learning styles. I think in general we've been running this kind of new way of online teaching for a few years. We really like the fact that it can happen at anyone's pace. Those who want to learn live with us, they can watch right now. Some others might learn later. And when we chat with our previous course participants, some people find this also useful months after, so they can go back to the stream, watching the videos, checking the notes document. In general, to conclude, when it comes to the community and to good rules, let's just try to be respectful. At Aalto, we have our code of conduct, and in any universities, we have a good code of conduct. If you see some inappropriate behavior, just let us know, and we can do the best to kind of, compensate for that or make sure that it doesn't happen. Um, there's few things that could go wrong, but usually they don't get wrong. In general, if you feel that there's too much information coming in too short time, it's totally normal, especially if it's the first time that you work with this type of HPC systems. But this is why it's great to have everything recorded, and you can later, rewatch at your own pace. If the notes are too fast to follow, don't worry. You don't need to follow the notes. You don't need to, we basically will highlight some important notes on the stream, and then again later you can always go back to the notes and have a look. I already mentioned this, that sometimes if there's too many people editing at the same time, the notes document might feel slow. So please switch to the view mode, and we won't have time to cover everything. So some of the materials that are linked in our main page, course page, are actually videos from previous rounds of this course, or there's other videos, for example, this kitchen metaphor to HPC. In general, we encourage you to, explore all the materials we have, and what we will show here in these 10 hours together is kind of, a small or a large subset of all the materials. What else? Well, we try not to deviate from the schedule, but, things happen. And when it comes to possible technical issues, it has happened only once that the whole internet collapsed during the streaming. Hopefully, the internet will be up again, but eventually, if something goes wrong, just wait a little bit and the stream might come back, or then you will receive another email from me saying that, I don't know, we could have a plan B. All right. Well, I guess maybe maybe the most important thing is to mention that the cat, Richard's cat, will visit the stream. I think it's too early now. Is the cat still sleeping, Richard? Or
Yeah, it's in
yeah.
the room but sleeping. It's usually later in the afternoon, so
Oh,
motivation to stay to the end.
exactly. All right. Um, well, final notes. Everything is recorded. Credits. I think I already wrote in the notes that for this course specifically, we don't give credits. And at the very bottom, there's a link to our mailing list. And for those of you who have ticked in the registration that you would like to hear about future courses, you will be added to this mailing list. And now it's exactly 10 past 10. So I'm happy to pass the ball back to